This is the Bema Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today, we are with Elle Grover Fricks to continue our series on images we find in the desert. We will learn about the Arar and Tamarisk trees and what they teach us about living in our own deserts.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're with Elle again. We're with Elle because you lived over in the desert. This was your backyard. This was your front yard. This was your world for a little while. So it's always good to have somebody that spent time over there talking about these images.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to jump in. I'm going to jump in with our review right at the tabernacle. Maybe to save some time, give us a little shorter of an episode today. We've got, we've been talking about the tabernacle in three different ways. From a literary perspective, it's like this retelling of Genesis. From like a literary criticism point of view, you could look at it that way. If you want to take the Mount Sinai as a wedding ceremony, the tabernacle becomes like a honeymoon suite, is one way that we talk about it. And then most recently, we talked about the tabernacle in terms of being a kingdom of priests, and that led into a discussion on the book of Leviticus. And what does it mean to be a priest? And Elle, I realized you do some talking about priest and how you like to translate priest. And ever since then, like I always think of your translation whenever I think of priest. So it's doing its work. It's stuck with me. But give us some of the translation juice you got here.
Absolutely. So if you look at the sister languages, the cognate languages around the Hebrew word for Kohen, it's pretty enlightening, pretty illuminating. So one of the sister languages says, one who undertakes anyone's cause, a deputy or delegate.
That really fits the fourfold role of priesthood we talked about. I like that. Somebody who stands in the gap, who intercedes, who a lot of the roles kind of mash together, but it's somebody who undertakes like shoulders kind of somebody else's cause.
Right. Absolutely.
Love it.
And then the other component that also comes from the cognate languages is this idea of opulence or abundance or richness, which we certainly see in the whole getup of the priests, right? We've got like bells and pomegranates and all sorts of fun things. And when combined with that delegate or deputy idea, priests are like representatives, right? Delegates of heaven, right? And so they're God's realm, what God is doing in the world. They're undertaking God's cause along with his people's cause. You could frame it that way too. But they're dressed in a way that's supposed to evoke the abundance, the richness, the opulence of God's realm. And they're walking around reminding people of that with who they are and what they look like.
I love it. So that idea of an opulent delegate should just ring all kinds of bells for us when we think about not too long ago in our Leviticus episode and who was a priest and what are they doing and what are their role. And that is that adds some really fun color to that.
Yeah, I think the idea of standing in the gap, I typically think of it as pleading the people's cause to God. But I like the idea of like, no, God's trying to do this thing too. And so like reminding the people, pleading God's cause to the people and say, hey, remember what you're, which like it's not like we haven't talked about that, but I think generally when I think about that, I'm thinking of it just in one direction, and it is two directions.
Yeah. So we come out of that Leviticus conversation into the book of Numbers. And in a lot of ways, we swung the conversation back to this marital wedding imagery. Again, the phrase we always have used in our review with our students has always been honeymoon in the desert. So we had this wedding ceremony on Mount Sinai. We had the owner's manual about priesthood in the book of Leviticus. But now this bride needs to learn about this relationship, gets to learn about her husband. And they go out into the wilderness, out into the midbar, out into the desert to basically experience and yada this, to know, the Hebrew word there, yada, to know this God that they are in a relationship with. And so we've been talking about these different images that when you go out to the desert, there's a lot of ways we could do the book of Numbers. One of the ways is to just think about what the kind of things that they learned in the desert outside of just the textual stories and those kind of things. So we've been talking about shepherds. Last time Elle was with us, we talked about shepherd and this idea of leading with our voice rather than a stick, which is this, again, a comparison between empire and shalom. Last episode, we talked about rotem and acacia. We talked about the idea of shade. We talked about the idea of being a gift in the desert is what the Bedouins often would call the acacia tree, the gift of the desert, the gift of the wilderness. And that sets us up for where we want to pick up today. We got 2 more trees we want to talk about, and we've got a presentation. And today's presentation is everything. Like, you're not going to learn this lesson unless you get a chance to see what we're talking about. Right,
wow.
Brent?
I thought we were people of the ears, but okay.
Oh, whoa, snap. Absolutely. Well, in this case, I call an audible. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, this is important. And also, I'll just give Elle credit. She did tell me the correct way to say this first tree's name. And that was mere moments before I introduced the episode. And a decade of bad habits are hard to break. So, Elle, how do you actually say this?
It's 2 ains, which has what's called a glottal stop. So it's ar rather than ar or something.
Well, rather than for the next 20 minutes me go art and make a seal sound, I'm going to call it arar for this.
Cool. Make sure you really drop those American R's. Arar.
Yeah, arar, arar.
You know what? I'm just a boy from Kansas. I can't help myself.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. None of us can ever learn new things or expand our abilities.
Oh.
Yeah,
well.
Brent.
Fine.
Well, this new tree, everybody, is another one of those bushes. It is a tree in Hebraic thought, but it's more, we might think more of a bush, the arar bush. See, now I'm just going to mess with myself the whole time, every time I say it.
Sorry.
The arar bush. And you'll see a picture of it in your presentation. It is, I don't know. Brent, you saw this actual bush that is in the photos here. You saw it in person. Tell me about your immediate, what did you think of when you saw this bush?
This was our 2016 trip.
Yeah.
Where I met Elle, actually.
Yeah.
Hey.
And it is, I mean, you can see it in the picture there in that wider shot with Marty standing there. There's no color anywhere else around. And it's just this bright green banner standing there in the desert.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, even the branches, I don't know what you want to call it, the trunk of the bush is almost like a bright yellow. The whole thing is just bright. It's vibrant. It's got this bright color to it. It's got this soft look to it, but this deep kind of green. And you can see in that slide there that has the 2 photos side by side, you can see on the left-hand photo there, you can see kind of the fruit. We'll call it the fruit of the arar bush there. And it's sitting there. And then what I'll often do, I will pull one of those fruit off the bush. You can see me holding it in that photo there to the right. And this just looks amazing. But in fact, this bush is toxic. It's poisonous in a lot of ways. When you take that fruit that I'm holding in that photo, if you go to the next slide, when we have students, I won't let them touch it, but I'll just say, like, what do you think this is like? Like, look at it from a distance. And everybody's like, wow, I mean, that's got to be, what do you think is inside? Like, we have all kinds of guesses. And then you take it and you kind of peel it open, and then it pops open. There's this popping sound, and the whole thing kind of is empty. It's got this cobwebby emptiness. There is a milky substance on the outside of the fruit that pops open. The milky substance, I've been told, is the part that is most toxic about it. And it's unbelievably toxic. Now, Elle, you have some notes in here about this word and what it rhymes with.
So I said rhymes with loosely because ar means this bush. Arar, the way you're saying it, or arur, means to curse. And we have a couple different words for curse. And this is the strongest one, to bind someone to a curse. Execration is another word for that. And the picture behind that is raising something down with a Z, R-A-Z-I-N-G, or stripping it down. And so it's this picture of you want to look for something that looks good in the desert, then it ends up being an arur or an ar. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that was my experience on my 2016 trip. It was the first day, and Marty was teaching about this bush, and I got heat exhaustion, just a little off screen.
Yeah.
And I had to go sit in the hotel for the rest of the day. So I experienced the arur of the art.
Yes. Yes. Just out of the pan of that photograph is Elle somewhere cursing me in the middle of. Absolutely.
Oh, boy.
Just lying on the ground. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Maybe I'll see if I can find a picture of Elle from
No.
that day and
Yeah.
add it in. Not from you, like, in your cursed
Okay,
state
sure.
earlier on.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fine, probably.
And again, just a reminder, we mentioned this in the last episode. A lot of people will be like, okay, no, wait a minute. I read different things when I study some of this stuff. So who are you citing? Like, where are you getting this information? I'm working off of things that were taught to me through my teacher, but the scholar behind that is a guy by the name of Noga Harovini. Noga Harovini as a biblical botanist. We talked a little bit more about him in the last episode, but his text, Elle, you were at Hebrew University, Mount Scopus. Is he still the required text reading there? Did you bump into that? Tell me about what you know about Noga.
I did not run into texts by Noga, but I sat in the garden that he worked on every day during my lunch break and enjoyed the fruit of his labor, nearly literally, the shade of his labor, one might say.
Absolutely. So that's the reference there. We'll put some links in the show notes again for people that want to see or find Noga and his work or anything like that. But I think the text that's going to really illuminate some of the things that Elle was just sharing with us is going to come from Jeremiah today. So, Brent, if you would, I'm going to have you go over to Jeremiah 17 and give us a couple verses where we bump into the bush.
Hey, look, you did it.
I'm learning.
This is what the Lord says. Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord. That person will be like a bush in the wastelands. They will not see prosperity when it comes. They will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives.
All right, so that passage makes perfect sense based on everything we just learned. And I love the connection. Elle, is this the proper connection there between cursed is the man and they will be an art in the wilderness?
Exactly right.
There's like an audible etymological connection there. You're hearing very similar sounds there as you're hearing Jeremiah 17.
Exactly. There's a third pun. If you care to, because it doesn't use the word midbar for desert there. It says arava.
Oh.
Another little play.
Goodness.
Arur, arava.
I love that. Okay, so, and that's that exact word there in the Hebrew. It is this bush here that the Hebrew seems to allude to directly. Sometimes when we're reading these, like the tree we're about ready to read, or the tree of Psalm 1, it's like it just says tree, and we're like, well, what kind of a tree? And then Noga Harovini is saying, well, I believe it would be this tree that they would think about. In this case, you have an actual word that definitely draws you towards a particular kind of bush as you read that. But Jeremiah 17 goes on past the bush to talk about something that's going to sound very familiar to the last episode. It's going to sound very, very familiar. Brent, give us a couple more verses in Jeremiah 17.
But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit.
Now, Brent, does that remind you of anything from our last episode?
Yeah, that's the acacia.
Yeah, sounds a whole lot like what Noga Harovini suggested was the acacia tree, which I think this is the place where Noga Harovini's case is made. Like it becomes rock solid for me because of the juxtaposition of this passage. So let's go back to what we learned in our last episode about the acacia tree. We said that for years, somewhat on end, Brent, what did we say in the last episode? The acacia tree can look what?
Dead. Just dormant. Absolutely
dead. It can look, and I think we put more, we put the pictures from last episode in the presentation again, just so you can remind yourselves that it can look completely dead on the outside, and yet it was called the gift of the desert by the Bedouin, versus it's juxtaposed earlier with the bush, which it's the opposite, looks amazing on the outside, but on the inside is toxic and poisonous. So the wisdom and the beautiful poetic picture, image, and play on Jeremiah 17 is, if we were to step back and think about the person who trusts in flesh, who rests on our own abilities, man, we can look real great on the outside. Like we can look real amazing. We can look like we have it all together. We can look like bright and vibrant, sticking out in the middle of the desert and the wilderness. But at the end of the day, what it provides and what's inside is toxic and poisonous. On the other hand, We can be a person of great faithfulness. We can look completely dead on the outside. We can look dry. We can look like we have nothing to offer. And yet when the rain comes, it never fails to produce fruit. It is not scared of the heat, and it will not perish because it was built to do this. And it becomes the very gift of the desert to provide everything from great building material to burning lumber, timber, to medicinal purposes and all kinds of things. You can look unbelievably dead on the outside, but be unbelievably rich on the inside. And I just love the wisdom of that, the teaching point and the ability of that image to teach. But Elle, what is it that you think of when you think of the acacia tree, the comparison here? What kind of things come to your mind?
Absolutely. We've been in this section where we're thinking about priesthood, kingdom of priesthood, and building of the tabernacle. So we're in this honeymoon in the desert. And what is the major wood that is used in the building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan? But the acacia tree. So the Ark of the Covenant is made out of acacia, the poles for the Ark, the boards on the Mishkan, the incense altar, the burnt offering altar, that's all made out of acacia tree. And then on top of that, all of those things except for the burnt offering altar, they're plated, they're covered in gold. And so it makes this cool imagery that reminds me of the opulent delegate, right? It's beautiful on the outside, sure, and reminds me of Jesus's whitewashed tombs, right? But the opposite. So what's on the inside? Okay, you've got gold on the outside, but what do you got underneath that? Well, this incredibly strong, durable, fruitful plant, right? So I love it.
And I love that connects back to this conversation about priesthood, and just keeps that picture, that image, and that learning curve going there. So love that. Brent, you got anything else before we move on to our last tree for this images series?
Well, I just like that Elle brought up Jesus' tombs reference, and also I was thinking about the cup, the dirty on the inside but clean on the outside. It's curious to me why Jesus would not have used this comparison in that set. So now I'm just like thinking like, well, why did he use the ones that he did, and why didn't he use these other? So anyway, I don't have anything really to add, just a thought that is rolling around in my brain.
I will have to come back to that in her Talmudic series in some future season. Some season 11 or 12 or sometime in the future. Who knows?
14. Whenever we have the gumption to get back into it.
All right. Well, we have one more tree I wanted to talk about today, and it is, I don't have a ton of content or material on it, but it is maybe my favorite of the desert trees that I learned about, and that is the tamarisk tree. The tamarisk tree. I've been told it's also called a salt cedar. I don't know if that's true. My expertise starts to get real slim at this point, but the tamarisk tree is a tree that requires a little bit of cultivation. It's not a tree like the rotem bush. It's not a tree like the acacia tree that's just going to grow on its own. I mean, it does. There are tamarisk trees that have. But generally speaking, the tamarisk tree is a tree that requires a little bit of cultivation. It takes in what moisture. Can you believe that there's moisture in the air of the desert? I'm not sure I ever believed that, but I've been told that there's moisture that comes blowing in off of these bodies of water. Whatever moisture is there, it takes it out of the air and then redistributes it in its shade, so that the shade is 15% cooler than just standard shade. I don't know how that's calculated, but I've been told it's 15% cooler in the shade of a tamarisk tree than it is the shade of a rock or something like that. So it's got this wonderful benefit to its shade. It is, I kept calling it in our original episode, the non-reboot episode, the legacy episode, I kept calling it like a luxury tree. I don't know what I was trying to communicate. It's like the Mercedes-Benz of trees. but it's this tree that it's a tree that it's a tree that you cultivate. It's a tree that you plant. But here's the thing. It takes 80 years to grow to complete full maturity. It takes decades to do this. You will not plant a tamarisk tree as a sapling and end up appreciating in your lifetime the full, mature, grown tamarisk tree. You plant a tamarisk tree for your grandkids. You don't plant it for yourself. You will never benefit. You plant a tamarisk tree essentially for others. And so the rabbis had this beautiful teaching as it was communicated to me. They say, how many tamarisk trees did you plant today? And I love, love, love this little rabbinical nugget. How many things did you do today that you will not benefit from? You planted seeds today. You did some things today that are for generations that come after you, but they will never benefit you. But you did them anyway for the people that come after you and behind you. How many things did you do for your grandkids today? How many things did you do for your spiritual grandkids today? Last episode, Brent, we talked about investing in college students and the way that we try to prioritize this work with young adults. Because what we're doing is we're trying to plant kingdom tamarisk trees. We're trying to take some of the things that we've experienced, some of the things that we've learned, and give them away to young adults who will take these things and do something with it that we may never even see or benefit from. But we feel like this is really good, worthwhile work, which if we have a great reflection, I'm sure Amber will get all kind of mileage about this in our companion for the episode today, in the companion guide. But how many tamarisk trees did you plant today? The passage we have comes out of Genesis 21. A couple verses out of Genesis 21, a few verses here, but is just a really moving passage to me. Brent, would you read those for us?
After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Avimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time.
See, there's this treaty, and Abraham goes and he plants a tamarisk tree, which when you read this and you don't know anything about the images of the desert or the trees or any of the biblical botany, it just is one of those verses you just read right over. Like, who cares that he would plant a tamarisk tree? When you realize that Abraham is making a statement about what he believes God's going to do. Like, he's not planting that tree for himself. He's making a statement that his grandkids will benefit from the things he's doing today. So he's planting a tamarisk tree. He's making a statement about what he believes about the future. And I just find that to be an unbelievably moving verse whenever I read it, and a wonderful reflection point. Elle, do you got anything that you think of when you think of tamarisk trees or this passage in Genesis or anything that you see there?
I've got both. So just backing up your Mercedes-Benz luxury tree argument, because that's the important part. There is an ancient poem, which I think is in Akkadian, going back to the time of Hammurabi, 18th century BC, which is this dialogue between two trees, a tamarisk and a date palm. And they're saying, no, I'm more luxurious and better. No, it's me. No, it's me. No, it's me. So there's cultural, historical idea that this tree is excellent, not just, pulling it for fun for biblical reference.
Goodness. I just feel like, have you ever had this feeling like you thought you were an idiot and now you feel validated and like a genius? Elle has accomplished that for me. It was wonderful.
Amazing. That's my tamarisk tree for the day. Helping Marty feel better. Oh dear. Okay. So in Genesis 21, the connection that I love, we tend to skip over these titles for God, right? We're like, there's a huge gallery of things you could call God, right? You have Adonai, you have Sabaoth, right? The Lord of armies or whatever. And we kind of just read over them like, yeah, sure, whatever. But the word he goes with, translated here, is the Hebrew word olam, which Brent's translation went with eternal. And it's connected to the idea of forever, ongoing, in perpetuity. Yeah. The vanishing line of the horizon is the picture for olam. And so it's like God has done something in this treaty that's happened to Be'er-Sheva. But it's not the end of the story. And this tamarisk tree is showing that, right, as a witness post for that. And that connects to Abraham's theology of who God is, because God is going to continue to work in this place because he is Adonai Olam, just like this tree is going to continue in the future to bless future generations. Oh,
that is such a great, I had not even noticed and made that connection. It makes the teaching point even more vibrant and strong there. I love that. Man, that's good. Eternity, forever. Tamarisk trees. Love it. Brent, you got anything?
Well, in the grand tradition of the podcast, I'm doing research during the episode, and I have verified that it is also called a salt cedar, and that is because it is able to tolerate saltier soil than most plants, apparently.
Very pertinent. Yeah, sure.
Durability.
What a great little nothingness to add to the end of you guys' great points.
Yeah, all you guys did was add so much color, depth, and validation to a lesson I learned that was so... It was one of my favorite desert lessons, and now I just feel like it's even better after today. I love it. Reboot for the win.
Yeah, these pictures are just so helpful in understanding what we're trying to do. Like the idea of our culture being built around words and trying to like fit all of these conceptual things into these letters. And it's like, yeah, but if you just look at this tree and then look at this tree, you totally get it. And it's so helpful. So I really appreciate these lessons too.
And that second picture in the PDF, that's of the tamarisk tree, that's it having grown over time, right?
Yeah. I guess I'll throw the Wikipedia page. There's a whole range of species, and they look pretty different depending on what part of the world they're growing in. So sometimes they're a little bit taller, sometimes they're more like flat and kind of moving along the ground. But yeah.
Amazing.
From what I understand, that is somewhat mature. I don't know. It's somewhat difficult to find pictures of tamarisk trees, I guess, because it takes so long for them to grow. People plant them and then they change their mind before it's done. I don't know.
Probably a lesson in there too.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. You can find the presentation and everything else at BemontDiscipleship.com. The show notes for this episode. If you type in BemontDiscipleship.com/28, which is the episode number today, that'll take you straight to the page. But hopefully it's just in your podcast app. You can scroll down, find that presentation. I'll throw the pictures in the chapter art as well, so you may have been seeing them as we go along. But all of those details are there. Elle, thanks for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with us. And
my fun facts. I'll go with fun facts over wisdom. Won't claim that today.
Elle's fun facts. I love it. It's good either way. You can use the contact page on the website to get in touch with us if you have any questions. If you want to start a group, you can use the groups page. The news page has all of the things that we have going on up to date right now, no matter when you're listening to this. So check out the website, browse around, see what you can find. But thanks for joining us on the Bama Podcast this week. We'll talk to you again soon.
Hi, I'm Jeff Moore, a Bama listener from Oklahoma. And here's the prayer from episode 28's companion. Search my heart, God, the depths of my soul, my mayode, my very, and may your light and love flourish within me. I set my confidence in you, my roots planted in your rich soil, seeking the water and life that I need to withstand the heat in dry and weary lands. Rather than gaze at my own reflection, may I look at those coming after me, the future before them, and may I choose to plant seeds for your kingdom, tamarisks of tomorrow. May the lives of every alien, orphan, and widow, every student, refugee, and image bearer that I meet be made better because of your work within me. And search my heart, Lord, and make it so. Amen.